Why do they have a pet if they don't even have a home for themselves? Like, get out of your comfort zones.
Listeners, guess what? Every single one of us judge. Hello and welcome to Critters and Cultures, the podcast where we explore the fascinating intersection of animal welfare and cultural diversity. I'm your host and veterinarian, Dr. Azalia Boyd, ready to uncover how our cultural differences challenge the way we care for animals and relate to each other. Join us on this journey through global traditions, learning from diverse perspectives, and advocating for empathy and respect in all of our interactions. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Critters and Cultures. If something resonates with you today during the podcast, please feel free to send a direct message or even comment below. So on this episode, you guys know by now that we have had guest after wonderful guest after wonderful guest, and today is no different. I am thrilled to welcome Natalia Hanson, a passionate advocate for animal welfare and a dual citizen of Colombia and Canada. Natalia's life mission is to help dogs and cats through high quality, high volume spay and neuter services to address pet overpopulation. As the executive director of Colombia Animals, Natalia leads a transformative sterilization campaign, which I was actually fortunate to participate in underserved communities across her native Colombia. What makes these campaigns truly special is really how she blends tourism with volunteerism, inviting Canadians and other international volunteers to join her in creating lasting change. Let's welcome Natalia Hanson to the show. Natalia, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much. What a wonderful intro. Thank you. What an honor to be here. I've been a fan of this podcast. I think I've listened to all of the episodes of season 1, so it's an honor for me to be here.
I am so excited that you have thoroughly enjoyed the episodes and from some dialogue that we've had, learned different things from the episode, and I'm sure that our listeners today are going to have that same experience with you. So, as you may know, the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is just to do an icebreaker question, okay? And then we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of who you are and all the good stuff that you do. So your icebreaker question, Natalia, if you could instantly become an expert in any completely random skill, maybe underwater basket weaving or llama herding, what would it be and why?
You know what? I wanted to be a vet, and I'll be super honest. I did not become a vet because I didn't want to go to school for about 8 years. So if I could become an expert in spaying and neutering dogs and cats, that's all. Can I just like skip all of the years of vet school and just learn how
Oh,
to do that?
oh my goodness, but you're doing it already. You're doing it without, like, how many dogs and cats has your campaign? Do you have a total count of the amount of
Yes.
lives impacted?
I just did it actually. And with the campaign that we just wrapped up that you were a part of, we are at 1956. So 1,956 surgeries, give or take. There is a
Wow.
chance that there's a slight margin of error. Maybe it's a little bit less, a little bit more, but
Yeah.
give or take 1950, 1,950 space and neuters, which is a lot. But obviously I want to get to like the millions, the hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands.
Well, you're well on your way, and you know, these things take time and they require resources and manpower, right? And volunteers, which we'll get all into that because I do want you to have a moment to speak to the audience about that. Natalia, tell us a little bit about you. What got you started? Tell us about your homeland. Tell us about your earliest memories with animals. Give us a little bit more insight to who you are.
Alrighty, so I was born and raised in beautiful Colombia, South America, for those who have never heard of it. Although, come on, people need to have heard of Colombia. Shakira, coffee. And growing up, I was very much influenced by American culture, all the movies, all the TV shows. So I dreamt about living in the United States. It was my dream. So I finished high school, did not want to enroll in university in Colombia. My goal was always to go somewhere else, especially the States. I lived in the States for a year. I was an au pair, which is a nanny, lived with a great family, fantastic experience. Then I went back to Colombia and I came to Canada to do my post-secondary education. So like I said before, I did not want to spend 8 or plus years. My respects to you, Dr. Azalia, and all the vets, because it's a lot of schooling. And I'm very like hands on. I get antsy. I'm like, no, no, I want to do things. I don't want to be in a classroom. So I enrolled in veterinary assistant, which was a 1 year program. This was here in Canada. So I started working in the field, in vet clinics. And then I went back to school a couple of years after for public relations. But my goal was to always combine both professions to work with and for animals. So I wasn't going to continue working in the veterinary field, but I went into fundraising, into events, into marketing. I worked at SPCAs. I still do at Humane Canada, which is the largest animal welfare organization in Canada. And my love for animals was always there. I grew up with dogs. Every time I used to see a stray dog, I would basically cry and I wanted to take them all home and my mom would lie to me. But like, no, 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 look, see that man over there? That's the owner. That's not true.
Right, right, right. You're like,
But
I'll take
otherwise, my house would have been filled with dogs mainly. And so, yeah, it was when I understood that the most humane and effective way of controlling pet overpopulation was sterilization. That's when I said, okay, that's got to be my mission in life. I even have a tattoo that says spay and neuter.
Oh my goodness.
I should have gotten it
That
on my forehead.
that is commitment. And I wouldn't be surprised if you got it on your beautiful forehead. That is commitment. I did forget to mention that in your introduction that you serve as the marketing, communications, and public relations coordinator for Humane Canada's
Yes.
Summit for Animals. That's,
Yes.
like you said, Canada's leading animal welfare conference, which is where we actually met.
Yes.
And I just want to call out, thank you so much for that introduction and more into your story. One thing that I can say is that all of the guests on the podcast, we have one thing in common, right? And that is the connection that we had to animals at a very young age, right? Most of us are pulling in cats and dogs, and we just have this love that for some, it's not necessarily there as heavy as it is for us, right? This calling into this work. But what I am so impressed with you by is how you've been able to get your marketing and your communications and public relations and mix that with the animals that you care so much for, right? I consider myself to be what I call multi-passionate. So it seems like that's you too, right? You have a passion for marketing, a passion for this, but you have a passion also for animals and how can we make all of this come together? And I do think that you do that so beautifully, beautifully well.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. What
yeah.
an honor to hear that from you. Thank you so much.
Let's talk about Columbia Animals. Tell us when this organization was started. I know that it went through some changes, but what inspired you to start Columbia Animals particularly?
So it started before it started, really. I had an unofficial start because I was living in Canada. I was doing my public relations schooling and I was going back. This was almost 10 years ago, 2015. And I was going back to Colombia for the holidays and I felt guilty. I felt like I need to do something. I can't just go back like another tourist and turn a blind eye and not do something for the animals while I'm there for about a month. So I had to do a school project. I had to put together an event, raise funds. And I thought, wait a second, maybe this could be my project. I could raise money for animals in Colombia. So I did that and I raised, it was about 2 weeks or so. And I think I raised about $1,300 or so. And so I tapped into my network. I organized a dinner, etc. I went back and I asked my contacts like, okay, who should I help? Do you have any recommendations, any rescues that need help, etc.? So I bought food for dogs and cats. I went and I paid some outstanding vet bills for a couple of rescues. I think I put together a 1-day sterilization campaign as well, all through my contacts because I wasn't living in Colombia. So I didn't really have that many connections. So I relied on other people. I was like, here's the money, you help me with the logistics. So it became a thing since then. Every time I went back to Colombia, I did fundraisers. I'm very grateful to my employers back then because they allowed me to raise money at the vet clinic where I was working. And then I brought a friend of mine. Her and I used to work together at the SPCA in Hamilton, Ontario. So she decided to tag along with me to Colombia for New Year's 2018. And we both raised some money. And I said, okay, she's coming here for such a short period of time. I want her to see a touristy part of Colombia, but at the same time, I want us to help animals. So I took her to a beautiful town a couple hours from Bogota. It's called Villa de Leyva, and we organized a 2 day clinic. It was her first time doing something like this, and she was very inspired. She was moved. She was touched. And that night, her and I were sharing a bed at an Airbnb with my parents, snoring
Oh
in
my
the next bed. And she was like, "We need to do this again." And my brother could come, and my sister, and my this, and, blah, blah, blah. And we started thinking. By then, I had been a volunteer myself at different campaigns. I had been in different areas within Canada with the Canadian Animal Assistance Team, which is a fantastic volunteer run group. I had been to Punta Cana in Dominican Republic. I had been to Mexico, and I always post on social media. And so my own network of friends and former coworkers were like, "Oh, I love what you're doing. I would love to do something like that." So my friend, back fast forward to my friend Melissa and I in Colombia at this Airbnb, we decided, okay, let's
yeah.
do this. Let's do it bigger. Let's do more surgeries. Okay, what do we need? How much money do we need for that? So we realized, okay, we're going from like $1,000, $2,000 to like 10,000. So it's going to look better if we raise that money through an organization rather than Natalia and Melissa raising the money. So we were cute, naive. We didn't really know what we were doing. It had a different name back then. And then over the years, I just realized that the mission and vision was changing. And I realized as well that people were coming down to Colombia also because they wanted to see the country. Colombia is a very popular destination right now for foreigners. And that's when I said, okay, I really need to make it official and combine the tourism and the volunteering. So that's how Colombia Animals was rebranded not even a year ago.
Wow. Not even a year ago?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah. The
goodness.
rebranding happened
I feel
recently.
like the work that you've been doing, it extends beyond the year, right? It definitely extends beyond the year. That is, a beautiful story, and thank you for sharing. I do want to know, people like you, like me, maybe not veterinarians, maybe vet techs, vet assistants, that might want to make this type of impact. What advice would you have for them, right? It sounds like you started and you kind of figured things out along the way. But there are other individuals that might want to do something or start something the way you did. Any advice that you'd have for them?
Honestly, do it. I am still figuring so much out. I will admit I do not know everything,
Yeah.
and I probably won't ever know everything. It's impossible for us to know everything. So I am glad I did it. And I really owe a lot to my friend Melissa because unconsciously she kind of gave me the push. Both and I just were like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
We didn't have a business plan in place. We didn't have a 5 year strategy. None of that existed. So that has come kind of along the way, and then word of mouth, and then you start meeting people, and then you start connecting with others. Just like Nike says, just do it.
Just do it.
Honestly, just
Yeah.
jump in. Just don't be scared. I know imposter syndrome is a big thing. I suffer from it sometimes, but
Mhm.
just do it and realize of the impact that you are going to make in your communities.
Yeah, I think that that's so important. Just do it. I am going to push you one more step to that though, but I do want to just say I'm reading this book, and in part of the reading, when it comes to, next steps, making a decision, being able to just go ahead and do it, part of the book said you have to have the desire and then you have to have the ability to make a decision, right? So if you have the desire or something in your heart, because I speak to so many people that want to do campaigns like this, the desire is there for a reason. Now make the decision, and then I would say to go ahead and do it. But let's push it one step further. Give them one action item. What would be that first just do it step that you would advise people to do?
Nice to meet you. This is what I'd like to do. What are your needs? How can we work together? And then just start from there. That would be my
Yeah.
first advice. First step.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think sometimes people think it's so much more complex than that, right? I need to have the 10-year business plan. You need to have a vision, yes, but sometimes it's just as simple as knocking on someone's door, right? So thank you for giving them that. Okay, or giving us all that, because maybe I want to start a campaign one of these days. Who knows? Okay, so let me talk to you about the tourism part, because Colombia, you're right, it's huge. On everybody is coming to Colombia right now. When I've been there for a couple of times, a handful of times, and the first time I went to Colombia, there wasn't a lot of traffic. It was kind of like a little hidden secret. Now I feel like everyone knows my secret destination is Colombia. Why is it important for you to show aspects of Colombia, your country, and combine that with the work that you're doing?
Well, you know what? I had to leave my home country to appreciate it. Not that I didn't appreciate it when I was growing up there, but it was just a given. Like I was born there, I lived there, whatever. It wasn't until I left and I started living in the United States and then in Canada, and I'd go back for vacation to my own home country. And I was like, oh, look at the mountains in Bogota. Wow. Look at
Right.
the food, all the flavors, you know. I started appreciating Colombia after I left. And I think it had to happen that way. If I hadn't left, if I hadn't been an immigrant in the United States and Canada, I probably still wouldn't care much about my own home country. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you something because I think it's worth mentioning. The reason why I believe Colombia has become so popular within the past 8 years or so, this has to do with our current history, is when the government signed the peace agreement with the guerrillas back in 2016, became safer, and foreigners and even Colombians from within their own country started feeling safer traveling around. So I do think that it's important for us to keep an eye on those things that we may think like, oh, politics, that has nothing to do with me. Actually, it does. So I am extremely honored when someone goes to Colombia, even if it's not through me. If someone just tells me like, oh, I've been there, I feel like they're saying to me, I went to your home, I went to your house. And I'm
Yeah.
like full of pride. There's
Oh my God.
so much beauty in Colombia. We are the second most biodiverse country in the world after Brazil. So in Colombia, you can have a mountain vacation, you can have hiking, you can have deserts, you can have beaches, you can have jungles, you can have cities. There is so much for everybody.
Gosh.
And the exchange rate is fantastic for my foreign volunteers.
The
Whenever they go,
exchange
they're like,
rate
oh my God,
is,
it's so
yeah,
cheap.
the exchange rate is one of the things that I found for me as a traveler is I like to go places where I feel welcomed, right? No one wants to travel and they don't feel welcome and safe, like you said. But every time I've been to Colombia, and I'm speaking as a Black woman, right? I feel safe going to Colombia. I feel welcomed and sometimes even celebrated. I think that they have an understanding, the country has an understanding of treating their visitors well, right? And so I think it is. It's biodiverse and it's also rich in culture, which is such a beautiful thing. So Colombia Animals has really grown into a powerful force. Right. And I'm sure the organization has big successes. Can you share a moment or an achievement that made you think, huh, this is why I started this journey? It might bring you to tears thinking about it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, first of all, like I said, we've done almost 2,000 surgeries, which is a big deal. We've had close to 30 volunteers, and these are not repeat volunteers because I've had people who have come more than once. But a moment that I can think of, so for example, Malambo, which you were
Oh
just
my
in.
gosh. Oh my.
Malambo is on the coast of Colombia. It's near Barranquilla, which, fun fact, is from where Shakira is from. And there's this woman and her son who always go to our campaigns. So we've been going to Malambo for 2 years now, and it's almost like I've seen her son grow up.
Mm,
He's got to be about maybe 13 years old right now. And I just saw her in a photo from our most recent campaign. She was there with her son and they brought animals. So seeing how the community members respond and keep going back and understand the importance of doing this work of spaying and neutering dogs and cats, that means a lot to me. That is one of those moments when I say, okay, this is the why. It's not like they are helpless. And that is something that I really stress to my volunteers. I always feel like we are not white saviors. We are not here because we know more, we have more money, we have more knowledge, we have more education. No, like, please, we are all equal. Sometimes the challenge is that they are underserved. They don't have maybe access to low cost or free spay and neuter services. Or yes, it's a different income level, so maybe they can't afford to pay at a regular veterinary clinic. So that's when we come in to help. And so it means a lot when I see the people showing up, bringing their animals. And sometimes it's not their own animals, sometimes it's their neighbors, or,
Gosh,
they do so much. They are so resourceful. We have dogs coming in wheelbarrows, we have cats coming in laundry baskets.
gosh.
And that means a lot to me. That to me is like, okay, this is the why.
Yes, that is the why, and I can attest to that. So I was there in Malambo with you, and I saw people bringing dogs and cats that they didn't necessarily say was theirs, right? Community animals that they were bringing in just to take care of, right? In the States, we have a way of saying that these are stray animals, but we're talking about community animals that residents and those in Malambo were kind of assuming responsibility for, right? We need to do the right thing as they're seeing it as the right thing, which I think is so beautiful. And yes, cats coming in laundry baskets, cats coming in pillowcases. Now I will say that that was a first. But listen, we need to get the job done, right? And the fancy cat carriers are not always available. And from what you and I discussed and what I researched about Malambo was that there's one veterinary clinic, right? And that one veterinary clinic is for the entire community. And that clinic is relatively expensive for some of the members in the community, right? So campaigns like this is super important, and I can just I saw how grateful people actually were while we were doing this work. So kudos to you, definitely kudos to you. And the mention of, we're not white saviors. I did a intercultural masterclass for the volunteers of this trip, and it was actually beautiful. And that was one of the things that we discussed, right? Sometimes when we travel, we go with our fancy cameras and our latest iPhones or Google. I won't get into that argument right now, whichever side. But and then we go into places and countries and communities and use the people that live in that community as props for our pictures and social media. And that can be very disrespectful in a way, right? Like, these people that live here are people, stressing that word, that live here. They have families, they have kids, they eat and drink and do everything that everybody else does. So I always just kind of urge people when they're doing their travel that yes, pictures are okay, but using individuals as props for a story, and be very careful of how you tell the story and what stories you tell when you come back. All of your volunteers had no problems with that whatsoever, but it did give us deeper conversation around that topic. And it's something for people to just, as you travel, even if you're going for a vacation, just kind of keep that in mind, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's beautiful too if we travel to other communities or countries that maybe are underserved compared to where we live, to not pity them, because the fact that they may have less in terms of financial resources, in terms of education or job opportunities, it doesn't mean that they're less than us. I've met a lot of people who don't have a lot of material things and seem genuinely happier than me.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think that's a good call out for anywhere that we go, right? So we're on the Critters and Cultures podcast, so we got to pull some of the culture in there, right? What would you say about how people in Colombia generally view companion animals? Do you see a growing shift towards seeing them as family members? Because right now that's the big talk. Pets are your family, right? What would you say about that for your country?
Yeah. Well, first of all, speaking of family, I have my doggy daughter, my
Yes.
daughter, Sammy, right next to me. Yeah. So especially I feel like in the younger generations, like millennials, Gen Z. We say Z in Canada, by the way, or Gen Z. Pets are becoming the new children. Yes, more and more people are having pets instead of actual human children. There is, I think, a growing industry of, for example, pet products like clothing. I've seen dog passports. I've seen, these fancy carriers. My one of my dogs has a stroller as well. So it's definitely shifting for sure from, I think, my parents or grandparents' generations. I think thanks to social media as well, there is bigger awareness. People are less tolerant about animal abuse, animal mistreatment, exploitation of animals. Right now, for example, there is a lot of pressure on authorities to ban the use of fireworks,
Hmm.
wildlife as well, farm animals. I like that we are really starting to consider animals as sentient beings as well. that they get scared as well,
Wow.
by something like a firework, or they have separation anxiety. That's been a beautiful shift to witness. Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. And I agree. I think that's happening all over the world, right? So for Colombia and for many other countries, including the United States, yeah, I can't tell you the amount of times when I'm in clinic, how many people come in to get Xanax, okay, for their pets during July 4th. I think it's one of the busiest times of year. Um, but yeah, I think that shift is actually very beautiful, and I think it goes not just to dog and cats, like you said, but to farm animals. We're seeing a lot of shifts where people are vegan and not eating meat and even doing, going to that extent as well. So, one of the things though is still that understanding that not everyone is going to feel the same way, that some people are going to consider their dog a guard dog and not necessarily a member of their family per se. And one of the things that I, try to inform people is that guess what? That is okay, right? We're all not going to have that same exact relationship with our pet. It doesn't mean that we don't love their lives or we don't care about their pain, right? It's just that relationships between humans and animals are different across the world, across cultures, across just people. So I'm going to ask this question, and particularly because of the work that I do in the community that I speak to. So I do speak a lot about cultural competencies, right? When we're dealing, especially in the States, when we're dealing with a increasingly diverse society, especially in the veterinary industry, where there's a lot of 98% of the profession is white, right? So part of what happens in the veterinary industry is sometimes we don't make that connection with that person, and that person might be from a different cultural background. So I do teach that. But what was surprising to me is, well, let me back up a little bit. What that also does is, the industry, and this also is the animal welfare industry, there tends to be, if you don't treat your pet the way I treat my pet, you're doing it wrong. But I heard someone say, just because my care doesn't look like your care, it doesn't mean I don't care. And that was one of the most impactful quotes that I've heard. And it's true. But one of the things that I noticed when I went to Malambo is that there were Colombians everywhere, right? Outside of the volunteers, you also had a group of Colombian volunteers. Within the group of volunteers, there were even Colombians that were slightly, I don't know if I want to say this, Natalia.
Judgmental, maybe.
Yeah, because my point is that it happens everywhere. And kind of what I want to say is that, sometimes when I have these talks, it's almost like people assume that me as a diverse woman is coming to teach everyone else that is not diverse on how to treat people of different ethnic backgrounds fairly, without judging, without bias, without stereotypes. But when I saw it in Colombia, we were dealing with Colombians on a whole, and some of those same judgments and stereotypes were still happening and were still there, right? And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it definitely is a reality. And to take a step back from what you were saying earlier, is we need to understand that the way we care for our pets is not the right way. I feel like we tend to do that as humans in many other aspects of our lives. The way we cook, the way we eat, the professions we choose is the right way. No. So we need to really open our minds and understand that there are other correct ways of doing things, in this case, caring for our pets. And some may be seen as guard dogs, like you said. We're not sleeping in bed with all of our dogs and cats all cuddled up, like I personally do, which is great.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely had an interaction with one of my local, meaning Colombian volunteers. And at this campaign that you participated in, we had doctors who were operating females ventrally, which means on their abdomen, cutting into their abdomen to remove the ovaries and uterus, and other vets who are doing flank, which means lateral on the right side. And one of these local volunteers said, okay, but I'm just worried about the ventral surgery. Like, what if it gets infected? This, and that. Okay, so how about we filter people? And those who seem like better pet caretakers, they get the ventral surgery. And I said, no, but hang on. Like, how are you going to judge a person whether or not they are good pet caretakers. Like, you don't know that. Is that based on their looks? Is that based on the clothes they're wearing? We
Right.
can't do that, because then at that point, that is a bias. That is an unconscious bias that you have. And you're assuming that someone may be a more responsible pet owner because they're dressed this way, not
Right.
that way, or because they
Right.
use this word, they speak more, eloquently. We
Right.
can't do that. So it made me realize, like, wow, this is our own people judging their peers, their own kind, for lack of a better word. So I do think that there is a lot of work for us to be done internally, and just opening up our eyes. I think sometimes we're in a bubble. And for example, if as a vet, we may be in the bubble of our clientele, and that's it, and that's all we know. So that's why I think that this outreach work is so important. Even for me, I'll tell you a super quick story.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I was the kind of person who judged people, for example, who are experiencing homelessness, and say they shouldn't own a pet. Why
Yeah.
do they have a pet if they don't even have a home for themselves? They can't, if they can't feed themselves. I had that mentality. And then I started volunteering with a fantastic organization here in Canada called Community Veterinary Outreach. And they would partner with social workers, for example, to provide basic veterinary care to pets of these people experiencing homelessness or transitionally housed. And it was a very eye opening and humbling experience for me, because I was surprised to see some of these people would show up and they knew exactly what food their pets ate. And me in private clinics where the clientele was of a higher socioeconomic status, sometimes you'd ask them, like, what does Fluff eat? I don't know, just kibble, And then we had these outreach clinics where people came, like, sure, maybe they weren't feeding them premium food. That's fine. But they knew the name, they knew the brand, they knew if it was chicken or tuna or this or that. And to me, it was, wow, really eye opening. And I had to, like, kind of like slap myself in the face and like shake myself up and say, Natalia, you were being a judgmental, bitch.
Oh
Not cool.
no.
I was.
Well, here's the thing, okay? Guess what, listeners? Guess what, Natalia? Every single one of us judge. Every single day, we're judging. We're judging someone because we're human, right? So judging happens. But the beautiful thing is that you exposed yourself and you put yourself in a situation where you were actually learning, right? To kind of peel back some of those judgments, right? Or at least to be able to acknowledge when it's happening and go, oh, this isn't the right train of thought, right? I need to adjust my train of thought. And it happens to every single human, it happens everywhere. It happens from one class to another, one race to another. And within those same groups that share the same class and the same ethnicity and the same culture, it happens there as well. I truly believe and am always going to advocate for a world where we are more empathetic, where we're less judgmental. And I think that that's how we improve the world. I feel like I'm giving a Miss America answer here, or Miss Universe. What do you want to do? I really want to improve the world. I really do. And it's the real and corny and cheesy thing, but the work that you're doing in Malambo, I had such an amazing, amazing, amazing experience, and that is not gaslighting at all. I cannot tell you. I know that you had a personal emergency. I don't know if you want to share that or if you want to honor that. I don't know if you want to do that in this space, but if you do, I would be completely open for you to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, we can talk about it for sure. Yes.
So, from what I heard, I had a short time with you in Malambo. Your campaigns on social media were always striking to me. I knew you as a person from when we met in Humane Canada, and I was so excited to spend every single day with you during the campaign. But you had an emergency.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
Tell us about
I was very excited, by the way. Let me start by saying this group of people that I had, I only knew about three of them in person. The rest were completely strangers to me. And big shout out to you, because you brought along some of these amazing volunteers. And I had a great feeling about them. I was like, this is a strong group, great skills, personality. We're going to have so much fun. I was excited because I had more people who spoke Spanish. So, yay, hello, Ivy, hello, Allison. And I was very eager as well to spend time with this new group of volunteers. And on our first day of work, we were working for 3 days. And on our first day of work, my dad passed away. And this was back in Bogota, where I live when I'm in Colombia. So obviously, needless to say, I had to go. I had to flee. I didn't want to tell anybody, only my partners, my immediate partners. And they encouraged me to go and understood and say, go take care of your family situation. We'll take care of this. So at least I felt like, okay, I'm not leaving my volunteers stranded in Colombia, in Malambo. It was very sad for sure. I know my dad was and still is extremely proud of the work that I did. We were using this kind of like bases to place the animals for surgery, the
We
females.
call them
Mhm.
the trough.
Yes, yes, correct.
Yeah.
And we had never used them before because all of the vets I had worked with at my campaigns do the flank, the lateral space on females. And the last communication I had with my dad that morning was me texting him a photo of these items in action. Dr.
Mhm.
Jade was doing a surgery, and I said, thank you so because he made them for me. He made them.
Okay.
So I said, thank you so much. They're fantastic. And he said, oh my God, amazing. Thank you. He used to send me 500 emojis, hearts, stars, you name it, the whole thing. And that was the last communication I had with him. So I felt a little bit guilty because I wasn't there when he passed away. He hadn't been feeling well for about a week or so. But I know he didn't resent me because he knew how important this work is for me. And he was very, very proud of it.
Very. I mean, I heard that that he was an amazing man and that he supported your dreams, right? Like every girl's wish for their dad to support their dreams, and by making the metal troughs for us to use during the
Yes.
campaign, I did want to just take a moment and allow you to acknowledge him and the love that he's given you and the support that he's given you. And we are so grateful for him having you and bringing you into this world because I think you're an amazing person and you're going to continue to do beautiful things. And so yes, we missed you, but we definitely understood. And so I did want to just take a moment
Thank
to make sure that we acknowledge your dad on the call.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for allowing me that space because obviously when it happened, I felt like I don't want to do anything else anymore. I just want to hide under a rock and never come out. Like my life has no meaning anymore because this was the first time that I experienced a loss, like very, very close to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is my life going to be like now? But I realized that's not what he wants. He really wants me to keep living my life and do it better, and especially this work because he 100% knew that this is my life's purpose and this is the legacy that I want to leave.
And you're going to do just that. And it's not going to be easy, but you're already doing such an amazing job. And all of the volunteers that I've heard that have gone to your campaigns have always had phenomenal experiences, whether that's from students, whether that's from veterinarians, whether that's from client service representatives, veterinary technicians. You accept such a diverse level of experience and interest into your campaign. So you're going to continue your father's legacy and continue to do this work because we need you, Natalia. And please take a moment to just talk to some potential volunteers, people that may be listening right now. I'm already telling them to sign up, but I want you
Yes.
to have an opportunity to tell them what's going on, what's next, where can they follow you? Yeah, give us more.
Yes, for sure. So, first of all, connect with us on social media. Mainly, Instagram is the main platform we're active on, and you can find us as Colombia Animals, all one word. And I like to have a mix of people who have that experience in veterinary medicine. It's important for us to have the vet techs, the vet assistants, but I also like to welcome people who just happen to love animals. Two of my returning volunteers who have come on 3 campaigns in a row, Brittany and Pete. Brittany is a flight attendant from Minnesota. Pete works in the oil fields in Alberta and BC, Canada. So they don't have technically the hands on experience with animals, but we give them a role where they are paired with someone with the experience, like a vet tech or vet assistant, and then they do fantastic work. To me, a very important quality in anyone who wants to volunteer with us is a good, positive attitude, can do attitude. Like nothing is too low for you. Like if you have that mentality, please don't come. But if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do whatever's needed, please come on out. Get out of your comfort zones. I know that traveling abroad to another country, different language, different culture, different food, it could be daunting, but hey, it's 1 week of your life and it could literally, not to sound cliche or sound like Miss America, but it could be life changing. I've received so many beautiful testimonials of my volunteers when they go back home and they just feel like, wow, I've opened up my eyes. My mindset has changed. My outlook in life. I'm more grateful for what I have. And that means a lot to me because it means it's a long lasting impact. So get out of your comfort zones. Do something where it may be scary at the beginning and then you'll feel like proud of yourself because you did it and because it's tourism with a purpose. You went out and you helped animals and you helped community members. You created a positive difference. So do it again. Just do it. Please, Nike, don't sue me for using that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Just do it. It's tourism with a purpose that you're going into a country and you're not just extracting from the country, right? You're leaving some of your skills, your heart, your grit there in the country as well. So I love that that is there. And then do you have to speak Spanish, Natalia? I know I have I went through Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, which I think got me by, but what about people that speak no Spanish at
No,
all?
no, it's not a requirement. Of course, I love it if you do speak Spanish, but no, it's not a requirement. We ensure that the volunteers who have zero Spanish skills are not interacting with the public because obviously they can't. No problem at all. But yeah, for those bilingual people, English and Spanish, hint, hint, wink,
Come on
wink.
over. Natalia, thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing just from beginning to end how you started and how far Columbia Animals has come. I will make sure that in the show notes, people will be able to find you, of course, and tag you and do all the things. And for anyone that's thinking about it, if you have the desire, and you can make a decision, make that decision today. It's not a sales pitch. I just strongly believe in Columbia Animals. And before we leave, Natalia, I'm going to give you a final question. If there was one message that you would want to leave the audience with today before we close out, what would that be?
Don't doubt your powers. Don't doubt the impact that you can have. You may think that you're a nobody. You may think, oh, but I'm not rich. I don't know. You don't have to be any special person, celebrity, rich, wealthy. You never know how much impact you can have by even making a small gift donation or if money is an issue, sharing something on social media. You never know who in your network can be seeing that message and can be impacting something. So believe in your powers, believe that you have influence and support whatever cause you're passionate about. Obviously, in my case, it's dogs and cats, it's spay neuters, but for some people, it may be the environment. For some people, it could be war veterans, whatever it is. Believe that you have the power to make a positive impact in what you believe in.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you guys for joining us on the Critters and Cultures podcast, where we explore the deep connections between humans, animals, and the world around us. Remember, every person has a story, every creature has a story, and every culture has its wisdom. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep discovering the wonders of our shared world.